What's up, hockey fans? This is episode 82 of the Clappercast. This is a special Ides of March edition. I'm Burke, and as always, joined by my co-host, Sean. Sean, watch out for backstabbers today. How's it going?
Not too bad. How about you?
Pretty good. Coming off a week where I had 3 wins in all 3 of my fantasy pools, so happy about that.
It's a good
Came
show.
down to the wire.
I think you mentioned one of them was like by like 0.2 points or something.
Yeah, did my best to avoid a tie and to eke out a victory, so pretty happy about that. Yeah, I mean the it seems like the season's going along here. I was checking the fantasy and we're already in week 9, so it's pretty crazy that we're that far ahead, and that it's already the middle of March.
Yeah, it's flying by, like halfway through the season, the regular season anyways already.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're at the halfway point, and things are looking like teams are kind of solidifying their playoff hopes, but there's still probably some room for some teams to trade places. So let's dive in. I know you wanted to talk about the North Division a bit.
Yes, the North Division's been pretty much like just a freewheeling, interesting division to watch, just with all the different teams jumping around constantly. We're now at a point where Toronto and Winnipeg are actually pretty much tied for first in the division if you go by points percentage. Winnipeg's got 3 games in hand on Toronto, so being down by 4 points, that's not unrealistic to think they could make up that gap. One of the big ones I was focusing in on over the weekend here is that Edmonton is currently 7-0-0 against Ottawa, but they're 11-12-0 against every other team in the division. Edmonton's sitting comfortably in third in the division right now, both in points for and in points percentage. And, that's just like a huge, huge discrepancy between getting all of your Ottawa points versus playing against other teams, right?
It's funny because I was actually looking at this too earlier today, and it's like, do you lean on the fact that, like, yeah, it's good that they've got those points out of the way, or do you lean the other way where it's like, well, those are almost expected points and you're not doing very good against the other teams in the division? So I don't know. I guess I kind of sit in the middle a little bit on that, but
it's an interesting point because I was thinking that, but then looking at Ottawa's record against other teams, where they're actually 10-13-1 against every other North Division team but Edmonton, which is not a great record, but it's also not like horrible. It seems like teams like Toronto and Montreal, like Ottawa's 500 with them against them pretty much. 3 wins, 3 losses or something.
Yeah, so they're 3-3 against the Leafs, and they're 3-2 against the Habs. So they've got a winning record against them.
They're not complete pushovers, the Senators, but they're also still, solidly in last in the division. And it'll be interesting to see if, like, later in the season, Edmonton can turn things around against some of the other North Division teams, because they're going to need to be able to beat Montreal, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto regularly come the end of the season, come playoff time.
Absolutely. For the Senators, they do have a pretty bad record where they're 10-20-1, so they've got more than double the amount of losses as wins. But if you take those 7 losses out from the Oilers, like, that's not that bad of a record. Like, it's not 500, but it's not terrible. And I mean, you still can't lose 7 straight against the same team. That's really bad. But yeah, you mentioned that they've got a winning record against the Habs. They've got a winning record against Calgary. They're 500 against the Leafs. They've got a losing record to the Jets, where they're 1-3-1, and then 0-7 against the Oilers. So it's like
this weird discrepancy. And
this is the only thing I looked at today ahead of the episode was just like, I was just thinking about, like, how bad are the Senators really? Because they're clearly bad against the Oilers, and the Oilers are really bad against the Leafs. But then the Senators are pretty decent against the Leafs. so like, how bad is
by
this
extension,
team?
Does this make Ottawa
14th.
the best team in the division?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a logic game, right? Like, if Team A loses to Team B and Team B loses to Team C, is Team C better than Team A? Not necessarily. But yeah, like they're 14th in the league for goals for with 83. And they're 31st out of won with 124 goals against. And
that's
this is a team that gets a lot of shots.
Yeah, that 124 is a solid lead. I think the next highest is 100.
Yeah, and so they've had some pretty poor goaltending. They've had some issues with their goalies getting hurt, and I think for Matt Murray, the stats don't reflect how good he's been for them. He's had some really bad games, but he has been hung out to dry a lot.
Yeah, you watch the team play, and there's a lot of miscommunications defensively. There's a lot of just, I don't want to say not trying, but the lack of cohesion in their defensive zone coverage is just completely broken down. No one knows what's going on. They're just kind of spinning in circles and waving their stick around.
Yeah, and could he be better? Yes, of course, but is he the only reason that they're losing games? No, definitely not. But yeah, it's just kind of funny that they're so bad against one team in the division, and that's kind of, it's really one road trip at the beginning of the season that really screwed him over in the record. But they're not an easy team to beat. You watch them play against some of these better teams, and they're in there. They're in the games usually. I mean, sometimes they get blown out, but they come back, and they're probably getting every team's lower effort than they can score a few. In that game against the Leafs where they were down by 4 or something, and they came back and won in OT, 5 straight goals or something. They're still battling, and so we've obviously in our few years here as a podcast, we've trash talked the Senators a lot, but it feels like this team is different this year. They're still not gonna make playoffs, but at least they're fun to watch, right?
Oh, for sure. They're energetic. They get decent chances, and you get guys like Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle on the ice, and Batherson and Norris have been fun to watch as well. There's just so much exciting talent to watch. Even if they're losing most of the time, they're still worth tuning in to see.
Yeah, they're losing, but they're making it interesting. But yeah, they're still probably going to finish last in the division unless one of these teams just skyrockets down. But yeah, you make a interesting point about the Oilers here too, where it's they're struggling against some of the other teams, and most notably Toronto. And are they going to be able to hold that record, that pace, once they don't get the games against the Senators anymore?
It's gonna be a really tough one, because it's that the Toronto record, they had that one really, really bad 3-game stretch, and that kind of really set it a lot worse than it looks. You'd have to hope that they don't go into a massive season worst slump in the middle of the playoffs again against Toronto conveniently, but you'd have to hope that at least they're competitive. They don't go 3 games against Toronto and score 1 goal or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they don't seem like they've only played 3 games against the Habs, but they've got 1 and 2 against them. And so it's just the Eastern Conference teams, I guess, they're just not stacking up nicely against, except for Ottawa.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's just one of those things where it's the team's play style is just, Edmonton has some way to beat Ottawa with certain play style that they can't exactly counter with Toronto or Montreal. Where just one team just has your number, just because something in the way that the team plays is just better than this team in particular.
Yeah, it's very weird that that's where the bulk of their points have come from just that one team. I don't know. Do you think that they're gonna keep the pace and hang on to a playoff spot at this point?
I mean, assuming Calgary, it's going to take quite a bit for Calgary to bounce back from where they are right now, because there's a significant drop in points percentage between Edmonton and Calgary, and I mean, Edmonton's 7 points ahead of Calgary right now. It's not unreasonable for that type of a swing, especially when Calgary has 2 games in hand. But the way the teams have been playing, it's going to take like a really, really bad second half from Edmonton to make up the difference in that.
Yeah, I think the more reasonable thing that might happen here, maybe not reasonable is not the right word here, but the more likely thing that might happen is that we see Calgary take that last spot from Montreal.
Yeah, that's very realistic.
Because Montreal has not done super great in the last 10. I think they're like 4-6 or something in their last 10, something like that.
3-3 and 4.
Yeah. So
one other interesting thing about the Oilers in the schedule is they haven't lost in overtime yet.
That's because they have Connor McDavid, overtime winner.
No, shout out to Kevin Quinn.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, have they played a lot of overtime games? I feel like I haven't seen them play that many.
I mean, I think they only have one. They've got 17, right? Yeah, they've only got one overtime win. So that means they only hit it overtime once.
Wow.
And I don't think they hit shootouts.
I guess they just want to go home.
Yeah.
I get paid for 60 minutes. I'm not playing anymore.
On the topic of getting paid, one goalie cashed in a little bit earlier this week. Jordan Binnington signed a 6x6 contract, 6 years, $6 million per year. What are your initial thoughts on that one?
I don't know. I think it's reasonable for their number one guy who has won a Stanley Cup with them, and you know they rely on him a lot. Probably pretty comparable to goalies that perform around the same as him. He makes a lot of starts for them, so if he plays well, I mean that's probably good value for the team. I just thought it was kind of a fair deal, but I mean, how old is Binnington? Because he's not as old as some of the other guys. Yeah, I mean, at the very end of that deal, it might not be as nice, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a contract that really hamstrings the franchise.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I mean, $6 million for their clear number one is a fair price. He is an above average goalie. He's kind of cashing in because the Blues are a very good and solid team in front of him. That he gets a lot of help from the system and from the team in place, but that doesn't mean that any random goalie is going to be able to go in and do what he does and help them, especially getting them to the Cup that in his rookie year there. Yeah,
I mean, we saw Jake Allen struggle in St. Louis, and then he went to Montreal and he's playing really well. And so part of that might be he gets along better with the staff in Montreal. I mean, there's been a staff change in Montreal, but I mean, maybe he just didn't like the system, could communicate with the guys, and Binnington fits in better and is able to get along or communicate with everybody there. And yeah, I think it's a fair contract. We've seen some absolute albatross contracts go out to goalies, like with Bobrovsky, and I would say that Binnington is a better goalie than he is at this point. So, yeah, I think it's a fair deal. I don't know. I just didn't see it and go like, "Wow, that's crazy." I mean, it's like Robin Leonard makes less than that, but like
it wasn't like a crazy
I don't know.
Holy crap, like jaw dropping. How did he get that? Right?
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the comparables, and the closest ones I could find were Martin Jones, who signed a 6-year, $5.75 million per year contract. At the time, Martin Jones played 60 more games, so season and a half. And then Markstrom obviously signed the same 6x6 past offseason as well. But he's got like 170 more games. He's played a lot more than Binnington has. But Binnington, I think, has had more success immediately as Markstrom kind of took a little bit to find his groove. And Binnington kind of jumped right in and immediately put himself in the discussion of top goalies.
Yeah, I mean, he was already at 4.4. So it's not like a huge stretch to put him up that high. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't one of those contracts where you look at it and you're like, wow, that was a steal, or like, wow, that's an overpay. It was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, they had like a window probably of like 5 to 6, which would seem fair, and they they landed in that window, and so I think they did a good job at signing him. And yeah, I mean, he's their guy.
Yeah. I am interested to see, just because this is only his third year in the league. So we don't have like a huge sample size in terms of, year-end stats to compare him and see how he's doing, getting better or worse. Obviously his numbers are going down from his rookie year because those were like out of this world. But looking specifically at like goals saved above average, when his rookie year he's 13.7, next season he's down to 3.3, and then so far this year he's at negative 0.6. So it'll be interesting to see once he gets a couple years into this if that number kind of jumps up a little bit, or if we find a bit more of a solid trend line, or if he kind of keeps going down a bit, and just kind of see where that goes over the next couple of seasons with him.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't great in the bubble. I guess St. Louis has struggled lately too, just as a team. They have been not doing it as hot as I'm sure they would have wanted, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis right now, 14-9-5 record. They have a negative goal differential, actually, 88 goals for, 92 goals against. But yeah, that 589 points percentage, they've been solidly average so far, and they're currently sitting in fourth in the West Division. I will say that's only 1 point behind Colorado, 2 points behind Minnesota, and 4 points behind Vegas. So it's not like they're way out of the race or anything for jumping up.
No, they're all kind of stealing points from each other. Yeah, it's definitely more of a battle for the top spot in that division than we anticipated. I think with Minnesota kind of jumping ahead of some of those teams and then getting kind of thrusting themselves into the conversation a bit. Like, can we just take a minute to talk about that? Like how good Minnesota has been?
Yeah, they've far exceeded our expectations.
The fact that a Minnesota Wild game is watchable now is amazing. Like I that's no shade thrown at Minnesota, but it's like, if you watched their games before this season, you kind of knew what you were going to get. You were going to get like a defensive, lower scoring game, lots of physical, hitting and blocks and things like that. The injection of Kirill Kaprizov into the lineup and the chemistry that he has with Zuccarello once Zuccarello came back, it is so fun to watch. Like, those guys can just find each other. They're so good. They're so smart with the puck, and they play a 200-foot game too. And so like they're just like a coach's wet dream. Like, they're so good. They're such good players. And like Kaprizov coming in, he was really, really hyped up as one of the guys to watch for the Calder, and he has not disappointed. Like, he has been amazing. I mean, he had a hat trick last week. Really helped my fantasy team. It's just been really, really good. I mean, their defense is still, it seems like they've got 4 guys who play like 20 minutes a night somehow.
The big one, the huge one for Minnesota is like the last couple seasons they had been let down by their goaltending when Devin Dubnyk was not performing as well as he needed to. This year they have Kaapo Kähkönen, who's come in, and he's probably he's probably one of the best rookie goalies in the league, and he's done an amazing job of giving the team some just support from that position. And Cam Talbot's been out with injury or COVID protocol and stuff throughout the season, so he hasn't played as much as they probably would have hoped, but he's still been solid enough that they're rolling Kähkönen and Talbot 1A 1B, and they're getting great support. Like, they've always had the good defense. They've always been like one of the better teams at preventing goals and preventing high quality chances. But now that they have the goaltending to save the low quality shots that they give up, they're doing incredible.
Yeah, definitely a good point there. Kähkönen has been really good. He's definitely thrown himself into that Calder conversation too. There's probably 3 rookie goalies that are kind of in that conversation. You've got Kevin Lankinen, Kähkönen, and then Nedeljkovic, or Nedeljkovic. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name.
I hear Nedeljkovic on the broadcast.
But all right, we'll go with that, Nedeljkovic. So those 3 have been really good. But I think Lincoln and Kekkonen have been just kind of better in my opinion, but yeah, I mean the Wild, like they've got some solid defense. They've got Dumba, Brodeen, Suter, Susie,
Spurgeon.
yeah, they've just got some yeah, Spurgeon, the captain,
Yeah.
which is still weird to me. They've just got some good good blue liners, and then their offense has always kind of been like, we said this about Montreal where they've got like a bunch of second lines, and I think that's kind of like Minnesota had like second or third lines for a long time, and now it seems like they've got that line with Kaprizov and Zook and Victor Rask, who is just benefiting from having those two great line mates, I think, and really brought his career back to life. And you've got the second line that's got Joel Eriksson Ek, who's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, big breakout season for him offensively.
I think you've got Kevin Fiala on that line, and what is it, Jordan Greenway?
And Greenway's had a really good season as well. He's kind of developing into a bit of a scoring power forward type.
Yeah, and like Kevin Fiala plays that 200-foot game too. Like, I don't know. Like last year, he was a really good scoring threat for them, and then I don't know. I just didn't really watch them that much, and then this year I've been watching their games to kind of bought into the hype of Kaprizov, and I didn't realize how much Fiala like throws the body around and plays that 200-foot game, and so. They look like a team that, if they get into playoffs, could do really well, just because they've got some depth in the lineup. They've got guys that can score. They've got guys who play 200 feet complete games, and
they've got that
they've
high
got two
energy,
good goalies.
high impact, high event style that keeps them engaged. You don't have to worry about them coming out slow or getting into like just cold slumps or whatever, because they're always engaged with the game.
Yeah. And I'm going to say a hot take here, but top 5 jerseys in the league.
The
those
retros
green,
or
those green jerseys?
The normal ones they have?
No, just the normal ones. That just, as far as normal jerseys go, like their green jerseys are so nice.
I like that.
I don't
it's
know what
not
it is,
just a
but
generic
I like
blue
them.
and red one.
Yeah.
The green
it's not blue
color.
and it's not red. Like it's like the primary color is not blue or red. It's really nice. Yeah. So, I mean, you could probably tell that I've been watching a few more of their games than usual, but I've just been having a lot of fun watching them, and I don't think I could ever really say that unless, you go way back until, like, Gaborik was on their team, and at that point I didn't really watch them unless they were playing, like, the Canucks or something, because I didn't have access to their games.
Yeah, and that's so huge for the team, for the organization, and for the fan base to get, because they've never, like you just said, Gaborik, they've never had that type of young offensive star talent aside from like Gaborik, basically. So to get someone like Kaprizov, and they have a couple of guys, a couple of other prospects who aren't playing. I think one of them sitting out the season. Another one I think is in college games still. But to get guys like this coming in, just to give some excitement and some youthful energy, some offense, some action to the game, it's going to be so great for engaging the fan base.
They've really kind of surprised, and it's really fun to watch. Yeah, you've got just going to read off some of the stat lines here. Like Kaprizov's 26 games played, 24 points. Greenway, 19 points. Zuccarello has played 15 games. He's got 18 points already. Joel Eriksson X got 16 points, with 11 of those being goals. And then Fiala's, he was suspended, so missed a few games there, but he's at 13 points. Brodeen's at 14. Marcus Foligno 16. So they've still kind of got that like scoring by committee thing, but they've got kind of that high end talent.
They have a committee, but they
cool
also have
then,
the high end star that's doing more, which is good as a sign of depth.
Yeah. And then the other storyline from them is that they healthy scratched Zach Parise, I think, which was one of like his first in his career.
Yep.
That's a guy who's played 1,000+ games in the NHL, and he got healthy scratched. And
I think what he gets scratched for, like staying out for like a minute and a half or 2 minute long shift at the end of a game trying to get an empty netter.
I don't know. I didn't see that.
It was something like that. He pushed a shift way too long and tried to get an empty netter or something. instead of going for the line change. So that's just that the coach was like, "Yep, you know, that wasn't an approved move."
Yeah, it's funny. In their last few games, they've gotten a bunch of empty netters, and they've gotten. There's been a couple where they, like Jonas Brodin, like banked one in, and then they had like a couple awarded ones where like a guy was skating towards the puck and got like fouled from behind, and so they just awarded a goal. So they had two like awarded goals and one like this crazy deflection banker one. So
getting some luck right now.
So Parisi bench or sat because of that, but everybody else is getting those those empty netters. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that you kind of are hearing about who's gonna maybe get nominated for the Coach of the Year, and I don't really see Dean Evison being talked about.
So far I basically only see Quenneville for Florida. I haven't seen Eveson's name at all, really. So
far I've seen Brindamore, Quenneville, and Keefe for Toronto. But yeah, it seems like Evison would be a good pick too, right? Because I don't know, the Jack Adams always seems like such a weird award where it's like, did you coach the best team or did you like do something crazy, like you brought a team that shouldn't have been in contention all the way to contention?
Yeah.
And where I think Dean Evison would be like in that latter category.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas Brindamore, Keefe would be like, your team is really good. Is that because of coaching or talent or both, whatever? And then I think Quenneville would be maybe somewhere in the middle there because that team has, didn't really do very good last year, but they've really surprised people this season, especially with the division that they're in. But yeah, I think Dean Evison would be a dark horse to be in there as well, if Minnesota, stays hot like they are.
Yeah, I think once and if Minnesota stays, because they're sitting second in the division right now. If and when they stay at that position for another week or two, you'll probably start seeing a little bit more talk about Eveson in that Jack Adams award. But I think I don't think enough people are aware yet of just how good Minnesota's doing so far, that I don't think he's going to get the recognition for it until there's a little bit more staying power at the top end of that division.
Yeah, I think that Minnesota is like, because of that lack of like top end talent, I think they just get forgotten about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're probably seeing that with this kind of surge in the standings as well. As people will be like, oh yeah, well, it's really still Vegas, Colorado, St. Louis show. Another team in the division that's surprising is LA. Like they're
competitive.
Actually not as garbage as we thought.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, they are the fourth team in the division with a positive goal differential. It's +1, so it's not like they're blowing teams out of the water. But they've still managed a positive goal differential, and St. Louis doesn't right now, which is quite impressive considering the quality of their roster and the expectations around that team. But it's just another case of like, you've got that team with all the youthful talent. You've got Dustin Brown and Andrei Kopitar having just amazing seasons.
And Drew Doughty too.
And Doughty too has been solid defensively. Quick and Peterson have been a very reliable tandem. I think Peterson's taking over the starting reins lately. Neither of them are playing right now, I think, but Peterson was taking over the reins as the starter more recently, and they've been good.
Yeah, it's bizarro that they're up there because we thought that they would be right at the bottom in contention for like a good draft pick, just kind of like Chicago, right? Where it's kind of like a similar story where you've got a team that has a lot of young players and then some players that a lot of people thought were aging out. Probably more players on LA that are older now than Chicago, where Chicago has just kind of like Patrik Laine and Keith, with Seabrook retiring recently. but Kopitar has been putting the team on his back. He's got 32 points, 27 games. Doughty's got 22 points. Dustin Brown's got 19. Jeff Carter's got 14. So like and then Quick is getting along in the tooth too. So yeah, they've just got some seasoned guys that I think are just kind of like Patrik Laine, like, yeah, you know what? Just because we're supposed to suck doesn't mean we need to. like we could compete.
Take this,
and they had a lot of time off, and it's been good for the older players to get that time off, and they look like they've come back rested and ready to play.
So in news that is surprising absolutely nobody, Patrik Laine appears to be already in John Tortorella's doghouse. Something was a recent game. Laine had gone scoreless in 7 games or something. He finally found the score sheet throughout the last week, but there was one game where he didn't play at all in like the last 6.5 minutes of the third period, and this is including the overtime of that game as well. And Laine after the game in the press conference gave a quote along the lines of, "I don't know, I thought I was playing well." So wondering your thoughts on that situation as it begins to unfold already.
Yeah, what a surprise, hey? That defensively irresponsible forward is getting thrown into Tortorella's doghouse and benched. It's just very surprising. Who would have saw that coming? Pretty unsurprising news, but I mean, Columbus knew what they were getting when they got him, and you can't expect him to just, oh, I see everything clearly now. This is not the way I'm supposed to play hockey. I need to play it this way. Like, it's not going to be an instantaneous switch. So I think Torts needs to kind of cool it and be like, hey, you're not defensively responsible, but every player in the world's not going to play like Nick Foligno. So, maybe I can throw you out there in 3v3 overtime to try and give my team the best chance to win. It seems bizarre that he wasn't put out there at all. A game where you need a goal. On the
team. I get you want someone who's going to be able to defend when you're 3-on-3 because of the way that type of game goes back and forth. But he's got the best shot on the team. Like, you set him up for a one-timer and like he's good to go.
Yeah, I think he's playing with Bjorkstrand and Atkinson right now, and I mean they're also not like super. I mean, Atkinson's good defensively, but like Bjorkstrand's not a guy who excels in his own zone. So I just don't know, like, what the hell are you doing here, Tortorella? Like, there's people, like, I think it was like Pierre LeBrun was saying, like, is Tortorella actively trying to get fired right now? Because some of the decisions he's making doesn't look like he's trying to win hockey games right now.
Yeah. It was convenient for him. I mean, they get rid of his old doghouse target, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and immediately bring in someone who's going to be like moving straight into the doghouse with Patrik Laine, and it's not disappointing. And you are right, Pierre LeBrun, I think it was on TSN actually suggested, I wonder if John Tortorella is trying to get himself fired, and like this isn't just some random Reddit user suggesting that. Like this is this is like a big name in hockey media is suggesting that this is happening. And you've got this offensive talent, like, one of the best goal scorers, one of the best shooters in the league, and you bench him at the end of a game, you're tied in, and then it threw out overtime. Tortorella obviously suggests that he's not benching him. He's like, oh, just, putting out the lines or whatever, right? But it's pretty clear that he's playing on like your first or second line, and you don't play that line throughout the whole last part of the game, that it's close. It's like that's not a normal trying to win or a normal way to roll your lines.
No. And like Columbus sucks. Like, they're just not playing well as a team.
They are struggling hard right now.
Like, everybody on the team isn't playing good defensive hockey, including Seth Jones, Zach Werenski. They're not scoring either. Max Domi is the team leader, I guess, in minuses. Team loser in minuses with -12. Line is at -11. Then Seth Jones at -10. So, I mean, at what point do you say, yeah, we're going to get scored on sometimes when Liney's out there, but he's going to score goals too, which gives us
Yep.
a chance to win hockey games. I'm not just gonna, let's just play like, Michael Del Zotto all game because he's got +8. Like, I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, you throw Riley Nash out there all game, eventually he'll probably score 1 or 2 goals, but you're not going to win just because, like, you can't defense. Just playing defensively isn't going to win you games. You're going to reduce the amount that you get scored on, but you're still going to get scored on, and you need to score too. And Columbus is just, he was brought in to be a goal scorer.
It's going to be interesting.
He's a peacock. You got to let him fly, right? You got to let him show his feathers off. You got to let him do it.
Let him
Otherwise, he's just going to leave.
And that brings me to my next
bombs.
point here is, like, Jarmo Kekalainen, Columbus's GM, has given Tortorella the vote of confidence for, the time being at least. But is he going to stick with Tortorella if the team continues to struggle, and he's going to stick with Tortorella if it means that he's not going to be able to re-sign Patrik Laine, because Laine is not going to stay in this situation. 40 potential 50-goal scorer is not going to stay in a situation where he's getting benched for the last 6 minutes of a game and overtime. So does he stick with his coach, or does he, try and retain a star talent for once?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be really hard to keep Laine if Torts is there, because he's a star player and the team sucks. And if Laine stays, it's just probably going to be more of the same.
Yeah, and we already know that Laine, he wanted a bigger role with Winnipeg. So we know that's on his agenda. He's not getting a bigger role in Columbus, so he's probably not going to want to stay there if, the coach who isn't going to give him a bigger role.
No. I mean, is he a UFA or is he an RFA at the end of the season? Because if I was Laine and I was a UFA, I would just say,
RFA.
Hey, Seattle.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, an expansion franchise getting someone like Laine, like a high-profile scorer, like, that's exciting for them. He's an RFA, so it'll be a lot more difficult to get that worked out. But that would be that would be a really interesting move.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him really wanting to do that. It's especially if Bruce Boudreau's the coach.
Yeah, just gonna say, like, an offensive-minded coach like Boudreau, like, that would be a cool experiment.
Yeah, like, hey, Laine, you play similar as to how Ovechkin did and when he came into the league. Do you want to play with the actual coach that he had?
Right.
And be able to have the freedom to just play how you want in the offensive zone, and then, when it comes to the defensive end, you can just skate off. Like, play with Boudreau, and he'll let you do that. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that that's a long-term fit with Laine in Columbus. Either way, if Tortorella stays or not, I just don't see it really working out. I mean, especially if Tortorella stays, I don't think he'll stay. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see how much praise Kekalainen was giving to Laine when the whole trade went down, and how quick they were to talk some smack about Dubois. But, Dubois fit in really well in Winnipeg, and that team's winning. And, I wonder if Laine's got a little bit of, regret with requesting a trade or talking about getting traded or whatever happened, because now you're on a team that's not going to make playoffs probably, and, the team that you left they've got a shot at winning the division, and you could have been a part of that. So just wondering kind of where his head's at now, because it's like, well, you left a place where maybe there was some stuff going on with Wheeler and Scheifele and Paul Maurice, but the team was doing well, and now you're on a team where the coach, you're in his doghouse and the team sucks. So probably tough to be in.
So that wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and share this episode around your circles. For more content, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Clappercast Media, or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more hockey talk.